Welcome to the American Sentinel. My name is Patty Ramsey, and this is the Friday show. I said, welcome to the American Sentinel. My name is Patty Ramsey, and this is the Friday show, and we have an awesome show. We have an awesome show for you. Diversity is our friend. Diversity is our greatest strength. Obama came on TV and he said, diversity is our strength. And we have to embrace diversity. Well, Uncle Patty's coming on the Friday show. And I'm saying, fuck that. I'm saying, with a fucking hot curling iron, fuck that in the ass. Diversity is not our friend. Diversity is not our strength. Diversity is our weakness. Diversity is our downfall. Diversity is how you make yourself commit social suicide. Diversity by its nature, by the definition of it. And by the way, welcome to the Friday show for everybody joining on Patreon, everyone joining on Rumble, everyone joining on Instagram. This is the Friday show, and especially to my core group on Facebook Live. You are my friends and family. You are my neo-nephews. You are my people. And I love you. Your Uncle Patty loves you. By its definition, the word diversity exhibits degrees of change within a sample size. So if we take a sample size of all the Americans from 1964, you will see that there isn't much diversity, that people are homogeneous. And that in that period in time, you were 98% white, 98% Christian in almost every major city in America, and the crime rate was low, and the education was high, and the propensity for excellence was great. The national pride was wonderful. People took pride in the civic structure of this country. But the more of others that we import, the more others that we bring into this common American experience, the worse it's going to go down. The number one city in Tennessee for crime is also one of the number one cities in America for crime. That's Memphis, Tennessee. Trump's talking about sending the National Guard over there. And why is he not talking about sending ICE over there? Why is he not talking about sending ICE? He's sending ICE everywhere else. Because there's no immigrants in Memphis. Not to the level you see in Chicago or Miami or Nashville or New York. Because immigrants don't come here to reap the benefits of other people of color. They come here to have access to what has historically been white, Christian, Anglo-Saxon prosperity. Our civilizations, our civil engineering, our architecture, our medicine, our invention. And only a few times throughout history has a people been welcomed in to a civilization, and then within one generation, sometimes even in that first generation, started protesting the people that let them in. We let Mexicans in, we let Hondurans in, we let everybody come in with Joe Biden. And these people are not only ungrateful to be here, they don't understand that access to white people is not a privilege, and they don't even understand their own Latin American history, and we'll get into that in a moment. The Indios versus the Spaniards. The Indios versus the Portuguese and Italians. Maximilian Habsburg, when France actually owned Mexico. Most people don't even know that that was a thing. You kicked the white people out of those countries. You had revolts and civil wars in those countries. And then as your population and your civilization started to crumble, you thought that access to white people was your right. What a time to be alive. I believe that civil war is coming. I believe that civil war is coming because of diversity. And I believe that every single teacher, every baby boomer fascist teacher, every baby boomer communist teacher that you've ever had that came out of the 60s revolution, who stands in the court and says, "This land is your land, this land is my land," is a fucking piece of shit. Those faggots ruined this country after their parents went to another continent to slaughter white men for the Rothschild meat grinder. And they rode the coattails of their parents' social victory. And they took all the drugs, sex, and rock and roll that they could handle. And they ruined America. And they voted for people like themselves, like Bill Clinton and Joe Biden, because it would feel good, not because of an adherence to constitutionality. Most of them forgot what constitutionality was. That didn't feel good. That didn't feel good to the boomer. If diversity and inclusion and equity and integration with people who we don't want to be around is our strength, then why were we forced at gunpoint to do that? At the University of Mississippi, at the University of Alabama, the president... And by the way, I was a huge fan of John F. Kennedy being one of the first Irish Catholic presidents. But I will always hate him for what he did with forced integration. We don't survive with forced integration. If it was such a good thing, why did you have to send in 31,000? Don't believe me? Check the facts. These are presidential records. There were around 4,000 to 6,000 students at both Alabama and Ole Miss, the University of Mississippi. And he sent a total of 31,000 fully armed troops to force us to love our neighbor, to force us to accept people who we don't want to accept any longer. And how has America prospered since then? How has America behaved since then? Demographics equals destiny. Demographics equals destiny. What does that mean? If you change the demographics of the country, you change the destiny of the country. When we were on a trajectory as a single cohesive Anglo-Saxon and European unit, we were achieving things that had never been achieved before. When we started thinking in communist terms, as in we need to start helping everybody else. Listen, charity starts at home. You want to help other people? Make yourself the best you can be. And you may say, "Patty, are you racist?" I would have used to have said, "No, I'm not racist. I'm just a racial apologist for white people. I'm just a racial identity statistics enthusiast. I'm just a racialist." But yeah, I'm racist. Cancel me, fire me, do whatever you want. It's not the bad word it used to be. I love my people. I want my people to succeed. I don't want to be replaced. I don't want to go extinct. I don't want my children and my grandchildren to feel like minorities in the countries that their ancestors conquered from nothing. all the hard work that our people have done. Yesterday was Leif Erikson Day. And I think about Leif Erikson, and I think about the North Sea, and I think about how cold and choppy and icy that water is. And I've said it before. But my ancestors came to this country on boats before there were ever steam engines. They had no guarantee that when they got to America there would be anything waiting for them other than civil unrest, Indians, wilderness, disease, and plague. And they still faced that journey anyways. They still faced that journey with hope and faith that when they got there, enough of them would be alive to carry on some semblance of what they had in their heart and build a community out of nothing. And once they built it, once they laid all the bricks, carved all the wood, raised all the plumbing, somebody hops off of an airport at LaGuardia and says, "I'm American now. You see, I am American like you, my friend. I got my citizenship. I got in my citizenship." I don't care what you have. You are not American now. You have contributed nothing to this country. You have no skin in this game. And by the way, you have a country to go back to. See, let me tell you what a grade A American is. A grade A American is someone whose family can be traced back to between colonialism, pre-1776, up until the Civil War. If your family members came to this country between colonialism and the Civil War, you're what's called a grade A American. If you were a post-Civil War American, up until 1920s, then you are a grade B American, meaning most of the Irish in Boston, most of the Irish on the East Coast in Philadelphia and Chicago are grade B Americans because they came during the Civil War and after it. If you came after the Great European Migration, you are a grade C American. The Italians, the New Wave Irish, the Jews that came out of Poland and Russia and Germany, those are what's called grade C Americans. And everything that came after that, you are grade D. So everything between the 1920s and now, you are a grade D American. If you can even call yourself that. And I bring all this up and I give you this, and I didn't make that up, right? That's an old adage. I bring all that up to say there are some of us who have our ancestors so dug deep into this soil and into this land that we have nowhere to go. And you say, you're on stolen land. This belongs to the Native Americans. I may not be a Native American, but I am an American native, and I am a Scots-Irish, and I can tell you as a Scots-Irish, because I know my people in Donegal, Ireland, Northern Ireland. I know my people in Belfast, Northern Ireland. I know my people who came on the fucking cold, icy boats over here to Virginia and Philadelphia and braved their way through the Indian settlements into Appalachia and fought and skinned animals and ate what they could only to build civilizations like Nashville and Atlanta and Knoxville and Lexington and Charlotte and Asheville when there was nothing here before. And I bring this up and I bring up that ancestry to say the reason my ancestors came here, both my Irish ancestors from Northern Ireland who came not too long ago, which would make me on that part of my family a grade B American, and my Scots-Irish ancestors who came very, very much during the Revolutionary War time, which would make me a grade A American on that side of my family. They both came, all of my ancestors just about came from Northern Ireland in a place called Ulster. And they came here for the same reason in the 1900s as they did in the 1700s. Because of civil war in Northern Ireland. Why is there civil war in Northern Ireland? Well, because of what's called the Plantation Act. They took a bunch of Scots, Presbyterian, non-Catholic Scots from Scotland, and they put them in Northern Ireland, and they didn't mix well. The Scots saw themselves as something else. The native Irish saw themselves as something else. And since the 1500s, they have been fighting and killing each other. And by the way, there is some semblance of it still going on today. And when I was a kid, you would hear about the IRA blowing up stuff still. The UDA blowing up stuff still in Ulster, in Belfast, in Londonderry. And I'm telling you that to say, why we have civil war is because diversity doesn't work. People only accelerate violence when they are forced to cohabitate with people that they can't stand. Don't believe me? Look at Northern Ireland. I go to Belfast sometimes and there's still bullet holes and rocket holes in the fucking pubs. Don't believe me? Look at your own history here in America. The Civil War in America started in the 1860s. In the 1860s, it was started and finished. By the 1960s, that was 100 years. And here we are in 2025, and still we have not recovered from it. What do you mean we haven't recovered from it? Well, let's say this. All throughout the South, there are, from Charleston, South Carolina, to Charlottesville, Virginia, to Nashville, Tennessee, to Birmingham, Alabama, Montgomery, Alabama, there are statues commemorating veterans of Civil War. As a matter of fact, in Mississippi, they have Civil War Veterans Memorial Day where the kids get off schools. And that is a primarily white, Southern, Anglo-Saxon, and Scots-Irish holiday. That is a holiday where people like me celebrate their ancestors and their heritage and their rebellion for fighting against what they saw as tyranny. Because, listen, only 2% of the South owned slaves before the Civil War. And you were taught that the Civil War was all about slavery, but you were taught lies. You were also taught that a bunch of hijackers from Saudi Arabia flew 2 planes into a building on September 11, 2001, and that we knew it was them because we found their passport unburnt two blocks down the road. And we all know that was a lie now. Nobody even accepts that now. So don't accept that the American Civil War was about slavery, because I'm telling you now that it was not about slavery. It had almost zero to do with slavery. And by the way, 78% of all slave owners in the South were of Jewish origin, and almost 85% of all slave traders. The slave trade itself started from Jews, Sephardic Jews from England and the Netherlands, who were trading slaves. And I say all this to say this. If you think that we've recovered from the Civil War, then go out and look at these statues of General E. Lee in Chatham County Park in Savannah and see that they've graffitied it on it. Racist, and they try to tear down statues. And all throughout 2020, they were tearing down statues of General Stonewall Jackson and Robert E. Lee and Nathan Bedford Forrest all over America. And yeah, a lot of it was black people. But a lot of it was immigrants who weren't here 5-6 years ago, whose families definitely weren't here during the American Civil War, who have no business coming into this country and telling us how to interpret our own history. But again, that's more diversity. More diversity equals more hatred, more vitriol, more delineation from intention. I have an intentionality for how I want my destiny to play out. I have an intentionality for how I want my family's destiny to play out. The people of my community think similarly. They want the same thing. I choose to live in a community of people like myself so that we are on the same trajectory. But the more of those other people that we inject into this American experiment, the less that trajectory stays true. The more it starts to have a wobble to it and comes off course. Remember, if 2 boats are on the ocean and they are traveling parallel to one another, a 1, 2, 3, 4-degree turn may seem like nothing at first, but over time, they become so distant, so irregular, so unparalleled from each other, they are unrecognizable. And every single one of these people who we import into this country, who has a different trajectory expectation for their family than I do for mine, you delineate the trajectory of where I want my family lineage to go by a few degrees. And a few degrees now may not mean that much, but over time, this country will be so unrecognizable. And I say that to you as a millennial born in the 80s. Imagine what the World War II veterans who are still alive, and I know there's not many of them. My uncle Paul Collins, who served in World War II, died not too long ago, and he told me he doesn't recognize the country that he went to war for. He doesn't recognize the country that he came back to. What does that tell you? That tells you that America has not maintained its identity, and that demographics is destiny. And I am not willing to sacrifice my destiny or my children's destiny for the feel-good of boomers who will be dead in a few years. This land is your land. Why would I let some man tell me how to raise my kids? Why would I let some man tell me what I can do with my body? Freedom of choice. I burned my bra at Woodstock. Great, they should have burned you at the stake at Woodstock. You fucking witch. You fucking whore of Babylon. You Jezebel spirit. We are so disgusted at you. White men whose baby boomer parents talk like that, we despise you for giving our destiny away. We despise you for the feel-good you got when you watched The Green Mile and the black guy was right all along. For the feel-good you got when you said, if I was in Schindler's List, I would have stood up like Schindler and helped the Jews because I, which I is the baby boomer's favorite word, I am a great person. You would have done nothing because you were a sheep. How do I know? Because you took place in a CIA-created mind control experiment called the Summer of Love, and then you came back to brag about it like you had fought in some kind of war and won and conquered empires because you burned your bra and act like a whore in the middle of a field. So please, baby boomers, sit this one out. We are disgusted at you, especially baby boomer moms who learned 3 chords on a guitar and sang Kumbaya, my lord, and this land is your land. This land is your land. This land is my land. What a faggot song. This land is not your land. This land is not your land, and I don't want you on it. And, by the way, the Supreme Courts have ruled that you immigrants who have arrived illegally have no right to be here. And therefore, you have no right to receive any of the benefits that come along with being in this country. And Trump needs to do what he says he's going to do, which is enact policy and execute. He is the member, the sole member of the executive branch of government. He is the president. He must execute the law as was written. He cannot create law. He can only execute or veto. He cannot make judgments. He is not a Supreme Court judge. He's not a member of the judiciary branch of the government. He executes. The laws are established federally. Now, I don't care about your state laws, and I don't care about your little corrupt little county and town and city laws. And by the way, we have the power now, but we had the power in 2016, 17, 18, and 19, and what did Trump do? He talked a humongous game and then did absolutely fuck all. He talked just enough shit to make everyone hate us, everyone mad at us, to stir up the hornet's nest so that when he got kicked out of office, all of us Republicans, all of us militia type, all of us gun-toting, right-wing, God-loving Christians were persecuted by our government. We're told we were going to lose our jobs if we didn't take the COVID shot. And most of the military people did. lose their jobs if they didn't take the COVID shot. Most of the healthcare workers did lose their jobs if they didn't take the COVID shot. And here we are again, and history is repeating itself. Why? Because Trump's not a fighter. He may act like a fighter, but he's never been in a fight. You don't believe me? Ask the Theo Vaughn. Go back to the Theo Vaughn podcast where Theo Vaughn asked him, he goes, have you ever been in a fight before? He goes, no, I've never been in a fight. I did all my fighting in the boardrooms at Penn and in my college. How can you trust a man who's never been in a fight to lead you into battle? We are at war. They are murdering people. They are blowing up ICE detention facilities. They are shooting Charlie Kirk in the neck. They are stabbing Irina Zaruska on the throat and heart on the subways. They are stabbing Austin Metcalf at football games. They are killing people. And the Zionist-owned George Soros-backed DAs and judges have taken over the judiciary. They've taken it over. Which means in many jurisdictions in America, if you do anything to defend yourself against black crime, against trans crime, against Antifa crime, you're going to be prosecuted. You're going to go to solitary confinement just like the people from J6. Why is that? Because Trump is not a fighter. He does not fight for us. He stirs up the hornet's nest and then leaves us to deal with the mess. When I was a young man, there was a bully up the neighborhood. He was fucking insane. His name was Scott the Psycho. Which you can imagine how fucking crazy of a guy somebody must be to be named Scott the Psycho. And my dad told me when I was young, he said, don't never show your teeth if you can't bite, son. And so I thought I could bite. You know, me and my dad, we would get out and box all the time, kickbox, that kind of stuff. Of course, I was young. I was 9, 10 years old. This was years before I ever had a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, years before I ever did any kind of MMA. Years before I'd had rounds upon rounds on the ring and in the mat. This was I was 10 years old. There was a guy up the road named Scott the Psycho, we called him. Crazy burglar, crazy fucking kid. And he and I got into an argument over his little brother one time, and I had my foot on a skateboard. I had my left foot on a skateboard, and I was sitting there talking to his little brother, and bam, he clocked me. And when I went back, my foot went out, the skateboard went out, and before I got up, he was punching me. I was so dizzy and disoriented, I was just getting popped in the face. And finally, I regained my consciousness, and I was hitting him, but it wasn't doing much effect. Now, I was about 10, 11, and he was about 13 or 14. So he's a bit bigger, a bit older. And I was popping him, I was fighting him, I was giving him my all, but he beat my ass. And I came home, and I told my dad, and I was like, Dad, I got my ass beat. And he sat me down, and he looked across the table at me, and he goes, well, did you fight, you know? I said, yeah, I fought, but I didn't do very good. I fought as hard as I could, as a matter of fact. He sucker punched me. And you know what my dad said? He said, well, that's okay. It's okay. You're not going to win every fight you get into. If you have an opinion, that's what my dad told me. He said, if you have a belief or a stance or an opinion that's worth defending, and you stand and you fight and you give it your all and you lose, ain't no shame in getting your ass beat. It's a shame in being a coward. It's a shame in not fighting. Actually, there's more honor in knowing you're not going to win that fight and standing up for what you believe anyway. That's what my dad taught me. There ain't no shame in standing your ground, even if you know you're going to get your ass beat. It ain't no shame in getting that ass whooped. The shame comes when you don't stand up. The shame comes when you run like a coward. And Trump has talked all this shit. He has shown his teeth, and he does not bite. Why does he not bite? Because he wants to be part of the club. Remember, all these New York City socialites, all these liberals, all these Democrat socialites, and I'm not saying socialist, I'm saying socialite, the people at the parties with all the money, the billionaires, the tech CEOs, that was the group he wanted to be in. That was the group he wanted to impress from the beginning. Those were his people. He didn't want middle-of-the-America rednecks from Kansas, Ohio, and Kentucky. He didn't want fucking hillbillies from North Carolina and Georgia. He wanted the elites. He wanted the socialites. He wanted to be in the club. He wanted their vote. And he tried for years to get it. And he realized in that one moment when Obama called him out at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, you will never be president of the United States. I got to change my demographic. I got to change my base. And he did. Never trust a man to lead you into battle who's never been in a fight. And we're in more than a battle here. We're in a war for your minds. We're in a war for the soul of your children, for the soul of this nation. When they are clipping the testicles off of young children and throwing them into the fires of Moloch on the fucking altar of transgenderism. When they are sacrificing our babies at the altar of Planned Parenthood. In the memory of the great Jewish overlord Margaret Sanger. And you think that this man who's never been in a fight is going to lead you into war? And lead you into victory? At the same time he wants to be in the club with them? I think not. You want to solve all this? You want to solve all the Antifa stuff? You want to solve all the Soros-backed DAs? The Open Society Foundation-backed judges who are letting criminals out onto our streets? Who are paying billions after billions every year to get left-wing communist Marxist people into office? You want to stop all that? I'll give you a plan. If you look in Germany, Hungary, Austria, and even in the United States and Argentina, every year we see some news story where some 70, 80, 90-year-old man gets extradited back to Germany to stand trial for what happened back in 1930s. By the way, it's 1925. That was almost 100 years ago now. 1930 is 5 years away from being 100 years ago. Nazi war criminal hiding out in Great Britain since 1964 has been extradited back to Munich, Germany today in 2024 to stand trial for his part as a labor detention guard in Auschwitz. We've all heard that shit. We've all seen the documentaries where people get rounded up from Cincinnati or the evil next door or the apt pupil where Nazi war criminals get snatched up and sent back to stand trial for their crimes. Okay. You want to stop all this Antifa shit? You want to stop all this? Apply that same energy. Apply that same energy, and I'm not saying it was right to do that to those people. Apply that same energy to the world's most preeminent war criminal, George motherfucking Soros. By his own admission, he was a member of the Nazi Party, even though he was a Jew. And you say, how can you be a Jew and be a member of the Nazi Party? That don't make any sense, Patty. Have you ever heard of the Judenreich? The Judenreich was a Jewish group within the Nazi Party who was tasked with executing the will of the Third Reich against their own people. That's basically what George Soros was. He was a member of the Judenreich, the Jewish Reich. And he's got interview after interview out there saying he enjoyed himself during World War II, rounding up people, dispossessing them, throwing them in the gas chambers, taking everything that they had, if that even happened. If that even happened. And I'm not saying nobody died during the Holocaust, but I'm certainly not saying that 6 million people died. That's absolute bullshit. That's nonsensical. And I'm not saying that there was an intention for mass extermination. But you want to stop all this shit? Use that precedent to strip that man of any status he has of citizenry or station here in the United States and send him back to Europe to stand trials for what he did during the 40s. A ration of your enemies' weapons, supplies, wagons, logistics is worth 6 rations of your own. When you take away their ability to pay for their war, when you take away their purse, when you take away their money, their income from the left, from Antifa, from Trantifa, from Black Lives Matter, they no longer have the ability to fight their wars. They no longer have the ability to get left-wing Letitia James Marxist communists elected, Alvin Bragg DAs. What does our country come from? And listen, I don't hate Trump. I don't love him. let me pause for a minute and tell you guys something. You people who wave Trump flags and have Trump tattoos even and have like Trump fucking flags flying from the back of your trucks, thinking that politicians like you is like going to the strip club thinking you're going to find your wife. Man, I had her dancing on me last night, bro. She liked me a lot. Man, bro, I had her up at the strip club, man, and she gave me her number, dude. Told me to hit her up on Facebook. How many times have you heard some stupid shit like that out of some hillbilly? Thinking these politicians like you is like thinking strippers at the club like you. These motherfuckers don't know you. These hoes ain't loyal. These bitches don't know you. They here for one thing, and that's the come up. That's the money. That's what you can benefit them with. Do you understand now? Trump needs to use the precedents. And if you don't know what precedents means, it means the precedents. It's what we talk about in law. It's the establishment case, and it's already been set. The precedents has already been established that you can deport and strip people of their citizenship and their national identity based on war crimes if they are not natural-born U.S. citizens. That's been the law for years. They've done it to Nazi war criminals. They've done it to a lot of people. They've done it to people post-Vietnam. They found people living in the United States that were Viet Cong during the war that had tortured Americans to death. They rounded them up, sent them back home. Humanely, mercifully, and with more dignity than most civilizations throughout history would have ever done. That's what we need to do to George Soros. George Soros, by his own admission, is a Nazi war criminal, even though he's a Jew. But what will he do? When we send ICE, and by the way, that would solve everything. That would solve everything as far as the money goes overnight with these people. Shut down the Open Society Foundation, declare it use the RICO Act to declare it a terrorist, communist, infiltrating organization. But you know what he would do? I know what he would do. The same thing Jewish people always do when you catch them doing the most heinous shit in the world. They don't apologize. They don't seek mercy. They are unrepentant. They start diverting. They start making excuses. They start claiming that they are, in fact, the victim. Oh, you did the most horrible shit in the world, George Soros, and you founded this society that broke the Great Britain dollar and put hundreds of thousands, millions of people into starvation in countries all over the world. You flopped economies for fun to see if you could do it, let me tell you what this guy did. He flopped economies all over the world through his international trading school, his London School of Economics. And then when those people had nowhere to go, nothing to eat, nothing to survive on, no sustenance, he gave them a little bit of food and a one-way ticket to America so as to import these people as biological weapons to destroy our way of life. And what did you see? You saw people from Haiti come to Springfield, Ohio, and destroy the place. You saw places like California, where and by the way, even when I was a kid, California, 89% white cowboys, Christians. Now, you'd be lucky to find the white cowboy in California. It's all Hispanics. All of you Hispanics who come to this country, you need to realize something. There's a reason you have came here. It is for a better life. And I'm talking specifically to the Hispanics right now. I'll get on everybody else later. Specifically Hispanics from Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, Bolivia, Venezuela, And I should not even just say Hispanics, because Hispanics means people of Spanish-speaking lineage. I should say Latinos, because I want to include Brazil into this too. I want to include Brazil and Suriname. All you people from Latin America who came here, you came here for a better life. Why did you not have a better life already in the country that you previously existed in? Was it because of crime? Was it because of starvation? Was it because of poverty? Or did you just feel like walking thousands of miles and jumping on trains and trying to come across the Darien Gap and then fighting your way across the jungles on coke smuggling routes and dealing with the cartel people and risking rape and child abduction and kidnapping to get to America? Was all that worth it when you look back on it? And if it was, good. I hope we deport you, honestly. I really do, because you don't belong here. And you may say that's unmerciful. That has no dignity in it, but it does. It is merciful towards my children. It is dignified for my children, my lineage, my people. The people who did all the hard work. We don't want to give it away. Charity starts at home. I want a lot of you to go home. I want the mass majority of you to go back home, especially the ones who arrived illegally. You have to go. But let's just ask the question. Why did you come here? I just coming to work and having a better life. Quiero solamente trabajando en Estados Unidos. I only come to work in America. Porque yo quiero una vida mejor. Let me tell you something. The reason you came here, whether you know it or not, is to have access to the intellectual property of white people, both the ones living and historically deceased. And why do you not, people from Latin America, Central America, South America, why did you not just take advantage of the access to the intellectual property of the white people who you already had in your own country? Well, for that, we must look into the history of Simón Bolívar, who Bolivia is named after. We must look into the revolutions that took place, the civil wars that took place against the Spanish conquerors, against the white gentry, against the European Spanish people and Portuguese people who held positions of power and still do, by the way. You look at Colombia, you look at Argentina, you look at even in Mexico City even. There are people there who are whiter than me, and they still hold all the power. They still hold all the influence. And where there is a power struggle, and where there are two people who are so vastly different, the Indios and the Europeans, you're going to have civil war. And that's what we're looking at here in America. We are so vastly different from one place to another that what do you expect is going to happen? And I said all this tonight, and I bring this all to your attention tonight for one reason. As America transitions from a country to an international empire, we have to, one, understand that an empire is multiracial. An empire is multi-denominational, multicultural. I don't like it. I don't want to be an international empire, but we've gotten so big and we've gotten so involved in nuclear threats and military acquisition throughout the world that we have to now protect those things or we're going to collapse in on ourselves. And I understand that. It's not an overnight thing to give that back. But as we move forward, there has to be a repeal of the Civil Rights Act. Excuse me. As we move forward, we have to allow people a more libertarian approach to freedom of association. You cannot tell people where they can live. You cannot tell people who they can sell their home to, who they can buy a home from. We have to take the government's influence out of our freedom of association immediately. We have to let people assimilate with people who they want, and we have to let people keep others out of their communities who they don't want in their communities. And if we do that, we will see. We will see who is prosperous. And it won't be a race. I won't even know what you're doing. Winners focus on winning. Losers focus on winners. And I plan to be a winner. This is the American Sentinel. My name is Patty Ramsey. I love you all. I want you all to succeed. And more than anything, I want you to understand how power works. I want you to start reading books. I want you to understand how politics works. I want you to look at history. I want you to see how history has been repetitive and evolutionary and revolutionary throughout the history of man. Cyclical patterns have emerged. Patterns of racism that then gave way to patterns of war. Patterns of war that then gave way to collapses of civilizations. And I want you to use this. I want you to use this knowledge to enrich your brain, to flood your brain, your cerebral cortex with information and light, to use as a playbook for the betterment of not just you, not just your family, but of all of us, of our civilization at large.